AITA for reading my dad's hidden message after my mom praised my sister at my engagement dinner? I'm Nadia, 34, the oldest daughter, recently engaged to Ethan, and for most of my adult life, I had been the person my family called when something needed fixing but no one wanted the bill, the blame, or the responsibility. I didn't think of it that way for years. I thought I was dependable. I thought being the one who showed up early, stayed late, sent money, smoothed things over, and kept my mouth shut meant I was loving people well. In my family, reliable was just a polite way of saying available. My parents, Elaine and Martin, had 2 daughters. Me first, then Chloe 3 years later. Chloe was 31, charming in a way that made people excuse things before she even asked. She could be late to dinner with mascara streaks on her cheeks and a story about traffic or anxiety or how badly her week had gone, and my mother would pull out a chair like Chloe had just survived a war. I could arrive early with food, receipts, extra napkins, and the birthday gift Chloe forgot to buy, and my mother would tell me I put the serving spoons in the wrong place. That was our rhythm. If Chloe said no, she needed grace. If I said no, I was selfish. If Chloe forgot, she was overwhelmed. If I remembered, I was doing what family does. If Chloe cried, the room bent around her. If I got quiet, someone whispered that I was cold. It started with small things, the kind you feel petty for noticing. One year Chloe forgot our mom's birthday. Not forgot to mail a card, forgot. Fully forgot. I got a panicked call from her at 4:30 in the afternoon. Nadia, please, can you help me? Mom's going to be devastated. I was in the grocery store after a long day, standing by a display of cheap bouquets, holding my phone between my shoulder and my ear. What do you need? I asked. Just something nice. Maybe perfume? And a card. I'll pay you back Friday. Friday came and went. So did the next Friday. At dinner, Mom opened the perfume, pressed it to her chest and looked right at Chloe. Oh, sweetheart. You remembered. Chloe smiled with her eyes wet. Of course I did. I looked down at my plate. My dad saw me. He knew. He just gave me that little warning look that meant don't start. Afterward, when I told Chloe she still owed me, Mom overheard and said, "Don't make your sister feel small." Apparently asking for my own money back was making her small. Losing it in the first place was just Chloe being overwhelmed. There were bigger things too. Martin's car repair when the alternator died. A utility bill my parents said had slipped through the cracks. Chloe's rent shortage one winter when she said her paycheck had been delayed, then posted photos from a weekend trip 2 days later. I sent money through Zelle with memo lines like car repair, mom help, Chloe repayment, and birthday dinner. No one forced me at gunpoint. I want to be honest about that. I said yes. I sent the money. I picked up the phone. I let the patterns stay comfortable because fighting them felt exhausting, and because every time I pushed back I became the problem. My mother had a gift for turning a boundary into a character flaw. You've always kept score, she would say. Or, family doesn't need invoices. Or my personal favorite, you know Chloe is sensitive. Why would you embarrass her? My dad was quieter. He wasn't dramatic like my mom. He didn't cry or accuse. He just softened everything until nothing had edges. Let's keep the peace, he'd say. Your mother is upset. Don't make this harder than it has to be. For a long time, I thought his silence meant he understood me privately. I thought he was trapped between my mother's moods and Chloe's tears. I told myself he noticed. Maybe one day when things calmed down, he would tell me I had been right. That fantasy did more damage than I like admitting. Ethan noticed the pattern before I was ready to name it. The first time he saw it clearly, I was sitting on our couch with my phone in my hand, sending my parents money for something I can't even remember now. Probably another temporary problem. The kitchen sink was running because Ethan was washing the dinner plates, and my phone lit up with a Zelle confirmation. I remember typing, "Sorry I couldn't send it sooner." Ethan dried his hands and looked at me. "Why are you apologizing?" I glanced up. "What? You just sent them money. Why are you apologizing like you paid a bill late?" I laughed because that felt easier than answering. It's not a big deal. You always say that right after doing something that costs you. I locked my phone and set it face down on my thigh. It's easier than dealing with the guilt trip. Ethan leaned against the counter, quiet for a second. He's not the type to jump in and start insulting my family. That's one reason I trusted him. He watched, he listened, and he asked the questions I avoided asking myself. Finally he said, "That doesn't mean it's love, Nadia. It means they found the button that works." I hated how much that landed. By the time we got engaged, Ethan knew enough to be careful around my family. He was polite, warm even, but he never confused politeness with blindness. Our engagement dinner was supposed to be simple. Not a wedding rehearsal, not a huge event, just both families, some relatives, a few close friends, backyard string lights, rented linens, folding tables, paper place cards, and a catered buffet because my mother insisted that a daughter's engagement should feel like an occasion. I didn't argue. Honestly, part of me wanted the pretty night too. I wanted one family event that wasn't about Chloe needing rescuing or mom needing soothing. I wanted to sit beside Ethan with my hand in his and feel like the room was happy for us. That was all. About 3 weeks before the dinner, Mom called me while I was folding laundry. I could tell from the way she said my name that money was coming. "Nadia, honey, I want to talk to you about the dinner." "What about it?" "Well, the catering deposit is more than I expected, and the flowers are due this week. I just don't want Ethan's family thinking we can't host our own daughter properly." I closed my eyes. Ethan and I had already offered to keep everything small. His parents had also offered to contribute, gently and without making it weird. My mother rejected that immediately. "It would look tacky," she had said. So I asked, "How much are you short?" She hesitated. "For the deposit and floral balance, $4,200 would make things easier." I hate asking. She did not hate asking. She hated being seen asking. I sat down on the edge of the bed. "Mom, I'll help, but I need this to be clear. I don't want this turned into something it isn't." "What does that mean?" "It means I don't want to hear later that I didn't contribute, or that Chloe saved the day, or that you had to do everything alone. I'm happy to help. I just don't want it rewritten." There was a pause. Then Mom sighed like I had slapped her. "Of course not. You always assume the worst of me." "I'm not assuming. I'm asking. You're making this ugly." "No. I'm making it clear." Another pause. Then her voice softened. "I promise, sweetheart. I won't lie about it." I should have gotten that in writing. Actually, I did, sort of. After the call, I texted her. "Just sent $4,200 for catering/floral balance. Please confirm you got it." She replied, "Got it. Thank you. Please don't mention amounts to anyone. People get weird about money." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Still, I let it go. A week before the dinner, I went to my parents' house to help assemble the place cards. Chloe was supposed to be there too. She showed up 2 hours late with iced coffee, sunglasses on top of her head, and a story about how she had barely slept. Mom looked up from the dining table and beamed. "Look who made it." Chloe dropped into a chair and pressed a hand dramatically to her chest. I know I'm awful. But I'm here." Mom reached over and squeezed her arm. "That's what matters." I had already sorted 43 place cards alphabetically, tied ribbon around half the favors, and rewritten the menu cards because Mom changed her mind about the font. When I said, "Chloe, can you help with these?" she picked up a pen, wrote one name, then started scrolling on her phone. Mom noticed me noticing. "Nadia, don't start. This is supposed to be happy." I hadn't said a word. 3 days before the dinner, Mom texted me just after 9 p.m. "Mom, I'm so sorry. There's been an accounting mix-up with the catering deposit." I was in bed half watching a show Ethan had picked. I sat up. "Me? What kind of mix-up?" "Mom, the account is short. They need the final balance tomorrow by noon or we lose the order." "Me? I already sent the deposit and floral balance." The dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "Mom, I know. It's complicated. Please don't bring this up to Chloe. She's already fragile." There it was. Fragile. That was always the magic word. It meant Chloe had broken something, and I was supposed to sweep carefully. I got out of bed and walked into the kitchen. Ethan paused the show and followed, giving me space but not leaving me alone. I opened my banking app and stared at my balance. "How much?" I muttered. Mom sent another message. "Mom, could you cover $3,400 tonight and not mention it at dinner? Chloe feels awful enough." We'll explain after the weekend. I read it twice. Ethan stood across from me, arms folded loosely. What happened? I turned the phone toward him. He read it. His jaw tightened. Nadia. I know. Do you? I looked down at the message again. They needed the money by noon. The dinner was in 3 days. Ethan's family had booked travel. Relatives had RSVP'd. My mother would let the whole thing crash and then somehow make the wreckage my fault. I'm not doing this because I believe her, I said. Then why? Because I don't want our engagement dinner to become a financial crime scene in front of your parents. Ethan's face softened, but he didn't smile. I'll back whatever you decide. But I don't want you mistaking silence for peace. I sent the $3,400. The memo line said catering balance. Then I screenshotted everything. That was new. The evening of the engagement dinner was warm enough for everyone to pretend the weather had cooperated just for us. My parents' backyard had string lights zigzagging over rented folding tables covered in white linens. There were little glass jars with flowers in them, paper place cards tucked into holders, and a buffet set up along the fence with silver trays and tiny labels Mom had made me rewrite twice. I arrived 3 hours early in leggings and an old t-shirt, changed into my dress in my mother's bedroom 20 minutes before guests arrived, and spent the first half hour of the party making sure the caterers knew where to put the extra plates. Chloe arrived 40 minutes late wearing a pale blue dress and carrying store-bought flowers with the price sticker still stuck to the plastic sleeve. Mom gasped like a celebrity had walked in. Look who made it. Now the night can really start. I was standing near the drink table, adjusting place cards that the wind kept lifting. Ethan came up behind me and touched the small of my back. You okay? He asked quietly. I smiled without showing teeth. The night has officially started. Didn't you hear? He glanced toward Chloe, who was now hugging Mom while Mom smoothed her hair. I heard. For a little while, I let myself enjoy things. Ethan's mother hugged me and told me the place looked beautiful. His dad asked if we needed help moving chairs. One of my cousins said the food smelled amazing. The string lights glowed as the sky darkened, and for maybe 20 minutes, I felt like I had outrun the dread. Then my mother tapped a spoon against her champagne glass. Everyone quieted. Ethan's hand found mine under the table. Mom stood near the center of the patio in a floral dress, her champagne held delicately at chest height. My father stood slightly behind her, already looking uncomfortable, which should have warned me. Thank you all for being here tonight, Mom began. It means so much to see family come together to celebrate love, commitment, and the kind of loyalty that keeps people strong. So far fine. She smiled at me for half a second, then looked away. Marriage only works when a woman understands how to put family before herself. It requires softness, patience, sacrifice. My stomach tightened. Nadia has always been strong, Mom said, and a few people looked at me kindly. But strength without softness can become pride. And my prayer for her marriage is that she learns not just to lead, but to let love humble her. The table went still. I felt Ethan's fingers tense around mine. Mom turned toward Chloe. And I have to say, watching Chloe these past few months has reminded me what true family devotion looks like. She has always known how to show up when it matters. She protects this family's spirit. She reminds us to forgive. She reminds us to stay connected. Honestly, Chloe has held us together in ways she doesn't even realize. Chloe's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, Mom, she whispered, loud enough for the closest table to hear. Mom's eyes shined. I hope marriage teaches Nadia what Chloe already understands. Family first. Then Dad lifted his glass. To Chloe, he said. The heart of this family. I was sitting 3 feet away in the dress Ethan helped me pick out, getting erased at my own engagement dinner. For a second no one moved. Ethan's mother stopped mid-smile. His father looked down at his plate. A cousin blinked like she was trying to figure out whether she had missed something. Then a few older relatives clapped because people clap when silence gets too heavy. Chloe cried. Just enough to be beautiful, not enough to ruin her makeup. I did not scream. I did not throw my glass. I did not stand up and expose anyone right there. I sat still because my body knew before my mind did that if I reacted the way they wanted me to, the story would become about my reaction. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "We can leave." I shook my head once. Not yet. The rest of the dinner felt like watching a party from underwater. People ate. Forks scraped against paper plates. Someone laughed too loudly near the buffet. Chloe floated table to table receiving hugs like she had just announced she was donating a kidney. I excused myself to the kitchen under the excuse of checking on dessert. That was where I heard my mother. She was just outside the kitchen doorway, speaking softly to two relatives holding wine glasses. She's always had a hard time when Chloe gets attention, Mom said. One relative murmured. At her own engagement dinner? That's exactly why I worry about her, Mom replied. Marriage is hard when you carry resentment like that. My hand was on the counter. I remember the cool edge of it pressing into my palm. Ethan appeared at the other end of the kitchen, his eyes moving from my face to the doorway. He started toward me, but I shook my head. I didn't want a rescue. I wanted a record. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing against the nightstand. A cousin had posted a video from the toast on Facebook with the caption, "A beautiful reminder of what family loyalty looks like. So much love last night." The clip showed Mom praising Chloe. It showed Dad raising his glass. It showed me sitting there silently, face carefully blank, looking exactly like the bitter older sister my mother had described. There were heart emojis. Comments from older relatives. Someone wrote, "Chloe has always been such a light." Someone else wrote, "Beautiful words, Elaine." I thought the worst part would be people seeing me sit there silently. I was wrong. The worst part was my mother seeing the comments and deciding the lie had worked. By noon, the family group chat had 46 unread messages. Older relatives used too many emojis. Cousins watched silently. Chloe posted a broken heart emoji, then wrote, "I didn't want any drama. I just wanted to support my sister." Then Mom sent a paragraph. "I won't apologize for honoring the daughter who has consistently protected this family's spirit." Nadia brought a bitter energy to her own engagement because she cannot stand Chloe being loved. I tried to make one beautiful night about family, and somehow resentment still found a way in. I stared at the message while sitting at the kitchen table in sweatpants, my untouched coffee cooling beside me. That was when something shifted. Not exploded. Not snapped. Shifted. For years, shame had moved faster than my thoughts. Mom accused, Chloe cried, Dad sighed, and I scrambled to make the discomfort stop. But this time I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt awake. Before I responded, my phone buzzed with a private text from Ethan's cousin. Maybe I'm overstepping, but that speech was weird. Are you okay? Then Aunt Valerie texted. I'm sure your mom meant well, but that was a lot to say at your dinner. A friend who had been there wrote, I don't know the family history, but that toast felt targeted. I sat there reading those messages, realizing strangers and in-laws had clocked in one night what I had spent years trying to explain to myself. Ethan came into the kitchen and placed a hand on the back of my chair. Have you answered? No. Good. I looked up at him. He nodded toward my phone. Not because you shouldn't. Because you should answer with both feet on the ground. I almost laughed. That sounds like something from a courtroom drama. It sounds like something a woman with screenshots should consider. That made me smile for the first time that morning. Then I started digging. I opened my banking app first. The $4,200 transfer was there, dated 3 weeks before the dinner memo line. Catering/floral. The $3,400 transfer was there too, dated 3 days before the dinner memo line. Catering balance. I downloaded both confirmations. Then I searched my texts with Mom. Please don't mention amounts to anyone. People get weird about money. Please don't bring this up to Chloe. She's already fragile. Could you cover $3,400 today and not mention it at dinner? Chloe feels awful enough. I took screenshots with the dates visible. Then I searched Chloe's name. There it was, buried in a thread from months earlier when she had borrowed money and promised repayment. Chloe, I'll pay you back this time. I swear. I know I've been bad about it before. I need you to actually do it, Chloe. I can't keep covering everything. Chloe, I know. Mom said you're stressed. I don't want to be another thing. I stared at that line for a while. Another thing. She knew. Maybe not the whole shape of it, but enough. I checked my voicemail next. I'm not a voicemail person, but my mother was. She liked leaving emotional messages because they gave her room to perform without being interrupted. I found one from 2 days before the dinner. I played it on speaker while Ethan stood by the sink silent. "Nadia, it's Mom. Please call me when you can. I know you're upset, but Chloe made a bad choice and exposing her won't fix anything. She feels terrible. You're the older one. Please be the bigger person. After the dinner, we'll figure it out as a family. Please don't embarrass your sister." The automatic transcript wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. I saved the audio and copied the transcript into a document. My hands were cold. Ethan said, "You don't have to do anything with this today." "I know. Are you sure you want to keep going?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm sure I'm done being the only person with consequences." The last piece came from a thread I had forgotten about. A few days before the dinner, Mom had sent me a screenshot by mistake. At the time, I thought she was trying to show me part of a catering message, but she had cropped it badly. I had been too busy and irritated to study it closely. Now I opened it again. At the top, above the catering total, was part of a conversation with my dad. His contact name, Martin, sat above the visible bubble. "Elaine, I don't know what to do. Chloe used more than she admitted. Martin, don't panic. Nadia will cover it. She always does." I stopped breathing for a second. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was casual. That sentence did not sound like panic. It sounded like a grocery list. Like rain in the forecast. Like a fact everyone knew. Nadia will cover it. She always does. That was the sentence that ended my childhood. Not in a screaming movie scene way. In a quiet, ugly way. It told me my father had not been accidentally silent. He had not been privately sympathetic. He had been part of the math. Before anyone asked me, before anyone apologized, before anyone considered making Chloe responsible, they had already calculated my compliance. I got up from the table and walked into the bedroom. Ethan didn't follow immediately. He gave me maybe 10 minutes. Then he knocked on the half-open door. I was sitting on the edge of the bed staring at the wall. He crouched in front of me. "I'm sorry." I looked at him. He knew. "I know." "No, I mean he knew the whole time. Every time he told me to keep the peace, he knew whose peace I was buying." Ethan reached for my hand but didn't pull me toward him. "What do you want to do?" For the first time the answer came easily. "I want them to stop calling me jealous." So I made a timeline. Not a rant. Not a 20-page emotional essay. A timeline titled, "Before anyone calls me jealous again." I kept it clean. Dates. Amounts. Screenshots. Short explanations. The original $4,200 transfer. Mom's message telling me not to discuss money. The $3,400 emergency payment. Mom's message about Chloe being fragile. Chloe's old repayment promise showing the pattern. The voicemail transcript where Mom admitted Chloe made a bad choice. The screenshot of Dad's text. I printed the most important pages at a copy shop because I wanted physical paper. No tablet. No scrolling around while everyone pretended they couldn't see. I used binder clips and sticky notes. I put everything into a plain manila folder. Ethan watched me assemble it at our kitchen table. He didn't say, "Destroy them." He didn't say, "Let me handle it." He just asked, "Are you doing this because you want them to hurt? Or because you're done being lied about?" I placed the voicemail transcript on top of the bank statements. "Both would be human," he added. "I just want you to know which one it is." I thought about it. "I don't want to chase hurt," I said. "I want to stop paying for lies." He nodded. "Then keep it that clear." That afternoon I sent one message to the family group chat. "I'm not asking anyone to pick me. I'm asking everyone to stop judging me from a script my mother wrote. Before anyone calls me jealous again, please read the dates." Then I attached the timeline as a PDF. I turned off notifications. That lasted 11 minutes. When I checked again, chaos had bloomed. Mom had called 6 times. Chloe had sent 3 voice memos. Dad texted, "This isn't how family handles things." I almost laughed at that one. Mom wrote in the group chat, "Take this down immediately. You are humiliating this family." I replied, "No, Mom. I'm letting people see what I paid to hide." Chloe texted me privately, "Chloe, Can you not make this huge? Me, you had years to make it small. Chloe. I didn't ask Mom to say all that. Me, but you knew she was lying. Chloe. You've always acted like you're better than me. I stared at that for a long moment, then typed back. Mew. I acted like if I was useful enough, you would all stop treating me like I was disposable. She didn't answer that. Dad called next. I let it ring out. Then he texted again. Your mother is very upset. Can we please talk privately? I wrote. You had private chances. Use the group chat. He didn't. Of course he didn't. By evening, Mom had shifted tactics. She sent a message saying we needed to clear the air as a family and invited everyone to dinner the next night. Not everyone from the engagement dinner, but enough. Aunt Valerie, 2 cousins, my parents, Chloe, me, Ethan, and a couple of older relatives who had been active in the group chat. Ethan read the message over my shoulder. That means she wants an audience she thinks she can control, he said. I know. You don't have to go. I know that too. But I did go. Not because I thought I would get an apology. By then, some part of me already knew better. I went because my mother had spent years turning rooms into stages, and for once I was bringing the script she forgot she had written down. The dinner was at my parents' house. Same dining room where I had wrapped birthday gifts Chloe forgot, and stuffed cash into envelopes for emergencies no one thanked me for. The table was set like Mom thought cloth napkins could make a confrontation civilized. No one touched the food. Chloe sat beside Mom, eyes red, phone in her lap. Dad sat at the head of the table, rubbing his forehead before anyone had even spoken. Aunt Valerie sat across from me with her arms folded. She looked tired but not hostile. Ethan sat beside me. His hand rested near mine, not grabbing, not steering. Just there. Mom started before I had fully taken off my jacket. We are going to talk like a family, she said. Not like strangers on the internet. That's interesting, I said, sitting down. Because the internet post wasn't mine. Her mouth tightened. Nadia. I wanted one beautiful night without your resentment poisoning it. A cousin shifted uncomfortably. Mom continued, her voice soft and wounded. Instead, you embarrassed your sister because you couldn't handle her being loved. Chloe sniffed. I didn't ask you to be jealous of me. Something in me went very still. Dad raised one hand. Maybe we should all lower our voices. I looked at him. Funny. You never said that during the toast. The room went quiet. Mom leaned forward. This is exactly what I mean. You twist everything. No, I said. I documented it. I placed the manila folder on the table. Mom's eyes dropped to it, and for the first time that night real fear crossed her face. Do not do this, she said. I opened the folder. You already did this. I brought copies. No one spoke. I pulled out the first page and set it in the center of the table. You all got the toast, I said. Now you get the receipts. Chloe made a small sound like she was about to cry again. Mom reached for her hand. Dad stared at the table. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. This is the $4,200 transfer I sent Mom 3 weeks before the dinner. It covered the catering deposit and floral balance. Here is Mom confirming she received it. Here is Mom asking me not to mention amounts because, quote, people get weird about money. Aunt Valerie leaned forward and looked at the printout. I slid over the next page. This is 3 days before the dinner. Mom tells me there was an accounting mix-up and the account was short. Here is the message asking me to cover $3,400 and not bring it up to Chloe because Chloe was fragile. Mom inhaled sharply. That is private family business. No, I said. Private family business is asking for help privately. Public family business is using my engagement dinner to praise Chloe for holding together a dinner she helped almost derail. A cousin put a hand over her mouth. Chloe's face flushed. I didn't derail anything. I looked at her. Did you use money from the family account that was supposed to go toward the dinner? She looked at Mom. That was answer enough for some people but not for me. Chloe, I said. Did you use it? I was going to pay it back, she muttered. Aunt Valerie sat back slowly. Mom jumped in. She was under a lot of pressure. I pulled out the voicemail transcript. This is Mom's voicemail from 2 days before the dinner. I saved the audio too. She says, Chloe made a bad choice, but exposing her won't fix anything. You're the older one. Please be the bigger person. The older relative beside Valerie whispered. Oh my God. Mom's eyes filled instantly. After everything I sacrificed, this is how you repay me? No, I said. This is how I stop repaying you for things I didn't buy. Dad finally spoke. Nadia, can we not do this here? I turned to him. Where should we do it, Dad? In private, where you can tell me Mom is upset. Over the phone, where you can call it complicated. Or should I wait for another public event where I get humiliated, and then told my face made everyone uncomfortable? He looked down. I pulled out the screenshot. My hand trembled a little with this one. I hated that. I wanted to be completely calm, but betrayal has a pulse. This, I said, placing it on the table, is the text Mom accidentally sent me. It shows Dad's response after Mom told him Chloe used more money than she admitted. Dad's head snapped up. I read it aloud. Don't panic. Nadia will cover it. She always does. The room changed. Not loudly. No one gasped like in a movie. It was worse than that. Everyone just stopped pretending they didn't understand. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at the papers. Chloe stared at her lap. I looked around the table. So when you toasted Chloe for saving the family, what exactly did she save it from? The bill she helped create? The embarrassment I paid to prevent? Or the truth you were all hoping I'd swallow again? Aunt Valerie stood halfway, one hand pressed to the table. Elaine, she said. Is any of this fake? Mom's face crumpled. That is not the point. Aunt Valerie's voice sharpened. It is the only point. Mom reached for a napkin and dabbed under her eyes. I was trying to protect my daughter. Which one? I asked. She froze. No one rescued her. Aunt Valerie looked from Mom to Chloe. If Nadia paid for it, why was Chloe thanked for saving it? Chloe burst out. I didn't know Mom would say all that. But you accepted it, I said. I was embarrassed. You were applauded. I didn't want to make it bigger. You never do when someone else is paying. Chloe's eyes narrowed through her tears. You're enjoying this. I shook my head. No. I'm just not stopping it to protect you. A cousin who had been silent finally asked, Chloe, did you spend the money or not? Chloe wiped her cheek. I said I was going to pay it back. That's not what she asked, Aunt Valerie said. Chloe looked at the table. Yes. Mom let out a wounded sound. Valerie, please. You know family is complicated. Valerie didn't soften. Family is complicated. Math is not. For one ridiculous second I almost laughed. Dad pushed his chair back slightly. I was trying to keep the family together. That one hurt more than Chloe's tears or Mom's performance. I turned to him fully. No. You were keeping Mom calm and Chloe clean. That is not the same thing. His face went gray. I kept going because if I stopped I knew I would start crying, and I did not want my tears to become the headline. Your silence always had a beneficiary. It just wasn't me. Dad rubbed his forehead again. I should have handled it differently. You should have handled it when it cost you something. No one moved. Mom tried one more time. You should have handled this privately, she said. You are destroying this family. I looked at the table, at the untouched food, at the little folded napkins, at the people who had watched me get blamed for a story my mother built out of my silence. Then I looked back at her. You used my engagement to humiliate me, I said. I used your own words to correct the record. You made the lie public. I matched the setting. Her mouth opened then closed. I took one final sheet from the folder. It wasn't evidence. It was a list I had written that morning because I knew if I tried to speak from emotion, my family would drag me into fog. I'm going to be clear, I said. I am not covering another bill, deposit, mistake, apology, or story. Chloe whispered. Wow. I ignored her. If Chloe owes money, Chloe pays it. If Mom lies, Mom corrects it. If Dad knows the truth, Dad says it out loud. I am done paying for things I'm later accused of not doing. Mom's voice went cold. So this is about money? No, I said. The money is just the part with numbers. This is about being used and then insulted for not smiling during it. Ethan's hand stayed near mine. I didn't take it yet. I needed both hands on the table. My wedding is not available for anyone else's performance. There will be no family-controlled toast. No surprise speeches. No money from you. No planning decisions from you. And Chloe will not be in my wedding party. Chloe's head snapped up. Are you serious? Yes. You're really choosing money over your sister? No, I said. I'm choosing honesty over being billed for your life. Mom stood. I cannot sit here and listen to my daughter talk like this. I stood too slower. Then don't. But I'm not shrinking the truth to make it easier for you to leave the room. Aunt Valerie looked at me, then at Mom. We all owe her an apology, Valerie said. But some of us owe her money too. That was the closest thing to a gavel I got. Ethan and I left before dessert. No dramatic exit. No slammed doors. I gathered my folder, put the papers back in order, and walked out with my coat over my arm. Behind me voices rose and fell. Mom was crying. Chloe was saying something about being attacked. Dad said my name once, but I didn't turn around. Outside, the air felt cold enough to wake me up. Ethan opened the car door for me, then paused. Are you okay? I looked back at the house. Through the front window, I could see shadows moving around the dining room. No, I said. But I'm not confused anymore. He nodded. That sounds like progress. I sat down in the passenger seat, folder on my lap. It feels like grief with a spine, I said. The fallout came in waves. First, the Facebook post disappeared. Then the shared family album lost the toast video. Then people started leaving the group chat, not all at once, but in that awkward trickle that makes everyone notice each departure. A cousin texted me, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Another wrote, I thought your mom was exaggerating but didn't want to get involved. That was wrong. Aunt Valerie sent, I believed your mother because it was easier. I'm sorry. I read that one 3 times. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first apology that didn't ask me to comfort the person giving it. Ethan's mother called me the next day. She didn't pry. She just said, you do not owe anyone a role in your wedding just because they share DNA. I cried after that call. Not pretty crying. Not Chloe crying. The kind where your face gets hot and you make no sound because the sadness is too old to perform. Chloe texted 2 days later. Chloe, can we please talk like sisters? Me, you can text what you need to say. Chloe, I don't want this repayment thing to become a whole thing. Me, it is already a whole thing. You made it one when you let me be blamed. Chloe, I said I'd pay it back. Me, then send a repayment plan by Friday. Chloe, you're being cold. Me, I'm being specific. Chloe, you're really going to let money ruin our relationship? Me, I'm letting honesty define whether we had one. She didn't send a repayment plan by Friday. She sent a voice memo I didn't listen to. A week later, Aunt Valerie told me Chloe had been asked directly by 2 relatives when she planned to repay me. Apparently Chloe cried, said she was being cornered, and left early. I didn't feel triumph. I thought I would. I thought exposure would feel like revenge in the way people imagine revenge, hot and satisfying and clean. It mostly felt quiet. But it was a quiet I could breathe in. Mom tried to call several times. I didn't answer. Then she sent a long message about how mothers make mistakes and daughters should have compassion. She said she had only wanted to make Chloe feel included, because Chloe had been struggling. She said I had always been less emotionally expressive, and sometimes that made it hard for people to know I needed support. There it was again. My pain was my fault because I didn't decorate it loudly enough. I replied with one sentence. I will talk when you are ready to name what you did without explaining why I caused it. She didn't respond. Dad called the following Sunday afternoon. I answered because part of me still wanted to hear what he would do when there was no room left to hide. Hi, sweetheart, he said. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Ethan was in the living room, close enough if I needed him, far enough to let the conversation be mine. Hi, Dad. He cleared his throat. I've been thinking. I waited. I should have said something sooner. Yes. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. I closed my eyes. Dad. He sighed. I know. No, I don't think you do. You did realize. You texted Mom that I would cover it. You counted on me before I had even been asked. Silence. Then he said, I was just trying to keep everyone together. That line doesn't work on me anymore. His breathing changed on the other end. What do you want me to do? Tell the truth without me handing you a script. I can do that. Can you? Another silence. This time at least he didn't fill it with excuses. I said, if you want a relationship with me, it cannot depend on me pretending not to know what you did. I'm not asking you to choose between your daughters. I'm asking you to stop choosing the lie because it's quieter. His voice was small when he answered. I understand. I didn't know if he did. I still don't. But he sent a message to the family group chat that evening, and for once it was not vague. He wrote that I had paid for the engagement dinner expenses. He wrote that Chloe had used money meant for the dinner. He wrote that he knew and failed to tell the truth. He wrote that the toast was unfair to me. Mom did not react in the chat. Chloe left it. That was not a perfect ending. It wasn't even an apology from the person who owed me the biggest one, but it cracked something open. After that, Ethan and I changed our wedding plans. We took my mother off anything involving speeches. We removed the family toast entirely and replaced it with one welcome toast from Ethan's dad and one from my best friend. Chloe was removed from the wedding party. My mom was no longer invited to dress appointments. Dad was told he could attend as a guest, and any role beyond that would depend on how he behaved between now and then. I expected to feel cruel doing it. Instead, I felt sad. That surprised me. One night, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table with the revised guest list, seating chart, and a pile of invitation samples. My phone was on Do Not Disturb. The manila folder was in the drawer beside the takeout menus. Ethan looked at me over the seating chart. Are you sad? Yes. He reached across the table and took my hand. But I'm not confused anymore, I said. He smiled a little. Still sounds like progress. It still feels like grief with a spine. We sat like that for a while, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft scrape of paper whenever we moved a name card. Over the next few weeks, the shape of my family changed. Not in a dramatic, everyone learns a lesson way. Real life is messier than that. Some relatives apologized. Some stayed silent because admitting the truth would mean admitting they had watched it happen for years. A few tried to split the difference, telling me Mom handled it badly, but I should remember she loved me. I stopped debating love with people who thought love and access were the same thing. Chloe eventually sent $300 with the memo line. First payment. No apology. No message. Just the money. A month earlier, I would have called her to make the awkwardness easier for both of us. This time I sent a simple text. Received. Remaining balance is $3,100. She replied with a thumbs up emoji. I laughed when I saw it, not because it was funny but because it was so Chloe. Even cornered by math, she still wanted the smallest possible emotional footprint. Mom stayed quiet the longest. Then she sent a card in the mail, which was very her. No text that could be screenshotted. No voicemail that could be replayed. A card with flowers on the front and handwriting inside. It said she hoped I would not let one painful misunderstanding ruin a lifetime of family. I put the card back in the envelope and slid it into the manila folder. Evidence comes in many forms. Dad has been trying unevenly. He called me once and started to say, "Your mother feels," then stopped himself and said, "I'm sorry. That's not your responsibility." I thanked him for correcting it. I did not throw him a parade. That has been one of the hardest lessons. Not rewarding crumbs like they are meals. As for the wedding, it became smaller and calmer. Not perfect. Better than perfect maybe because it belonged to us. No one had access to the microphone unless Ethan and I approved it. No one had control over payments but us. No one could hold a deposit hostage, twist a receipt into a favor, or turn my own celebration into Chloe's redemption tour. Sometimes I still miss the family I thought I could earn. That is the part people don't always understand. Boundaries don't erase grief. They just stop grief from becoming a payment plan. For years, I had confused being needed with being loved. I thought if I carried enough, paid enough, stayed calm enough, and asked for little enough, eventually someone would look at me and say, "You've done so much. Thank you." Instead, my mother toasted my sister at my engagement dinner, and told a yard full of people I needed to learn family loyalty from the person whose mess I had just paid for. That should have broken me. Maybe it did, a little. But it also broke the story. And once the story broke, I didn't have to live inside it anymore. I didn't get the family apology I wanted. I got something better. I got my name back. They called me jealous for years. Turns out I was never jealous of Chloe. I was exhausted from paying for the love she got for free. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.